Hi, in this screencast, I'm going to walk you through the steps to create a pop art project in the silkscreen style based on the art of pop artist Andy Warhol. He was a painter, photographer, filmmaker, and publisher. In the mid-20th century, he produced iconic silkscreen paintings of subjects as mundane as soup cans and as glamorous as Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe. These remain hugely popular and have sparked countless imitations. You can create your own pop art inspired images with Photoshop. The silkscreen process The silkscreen technique forces paint onto canvas through a high contrast negative stencil that's been attached to a screen. The resulting image features strong blacks from the photograph, which can be simulated using Photoshop's threshold adjustment. In Andy Warhol's hands, crude blocks of garish, striking colors were added to selected areas, and images were often duplicated with alternative color schemes. And that's what we are going to do with our project. So the first thing that you want to do is pick an image that contains strong edges between the subject, background, face, and hair. This will make your project much easier. If you want to use a photo of something from popular culture, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to use a picture of a person. All right, so the first thing you want to do is select your image. I chose an old picture of one of my daughters. And go to my pop art file, my originals. Okay, that was the picture I chose. So the first thing that you want to do is make a copy of it and put it in your working folder and crop that version. Okay, so here was my original. My cropped version looks like this. Okay, and what I was trying to do with this crop is make it a square crop. I wanted room, an area in the background as one area that I'm going to put color into. The hair is going to be another area of color. The face will be the third area of color. And then her clothes, or the top of her dress, will be the fourth area of color. Okay. So I'm going to open up that image in Photoshop. Oops. Okay. Okay, so say you have cropped it. Okay, you have comes up as your background. Okay, first thing you want to do is to make a copy of the background. The quickest, or there's always a few ways to do something in Photoshop, but the way that I usually do it is click on that layer. I'm holding down on my trackpad or my mouse and drag it down here to this little icon, which means create a new layer with that same image. So as you can see, the second or the copy says background copy. Okay, I'm going to rename that cutaway. So the way you do that is just double click on the name and type in whatever you want it to be, and then click out of it. Okay. Now, our next step is we're going to use a selection tool, and there are many selection tools, all with a sort of specific use. Selection tools are the magic wand, the quick selection, the lasso tool. I'm going to choose the quick selection tool for this particular selection. so it is, there's the lasso. And remember, all these tools in the tool panel have a little triangle in the lower right-hand corner. If you click and drag out on that, it's going to show you the tools that are underneath it. They can't list them all on the screen or just be too many tools, so they kind of double them up in categories. Okay, so the one I want to use is the quick selection tool. Okay, and it kind of helps you, kind of guesses as you go what you might want. So it's a little intuitive. I'm going to use it with the plus sign activated up here. Okay, so make sure in the plus. So what I want to do is select all the background area. The edges are going to be easy. It's going around the hair that's, going to be a little tricky, but if it takes too much, then you can go back up with the minus tool and kind of readjust that area. Okay. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm on the cutaway version, or the layer. Okay, I'm going to start, I'll start, here it's already taken a little too much of a dress, but that's okay, we'll come back. Just kind of take it slow. I'm holding down on the trackpad or the mouse if you are using a mouse, and just kind of taking it slow. It's better to go a little bit slower. Okay, took maybe a little more of her hair there than I would like. Okay, well, took a little more of her dress. Okay, so I'm going to let go of the mouse or trackpad, go up into the minus, and see if I can budge that area back to just being the background. That worked. This little area worked, and then over on the other side on her dress, same thing. Okay, looks like there's a little bit right there. And then this doesn't matter quite as much. It was hard for the, yeah, that looks good. Okay, so what they call these little moving dotted line is the marching ants line. And what I want to do is delete the pixels that I've selected so I can put in a new color. Okay, so I have them selected. I'm going to have to edit and say clear. Okay, that clears out. Now we can see that on the little thumbnail here, how it's like the gray and white background. It's like, that's indicating that it's cleared out. If we turned off the background layer, we could see that. Okay, those pixels have been cleared away, the ones that I selected. All right. The next step is to add a new color field layer directly below the cutaway layer, and we're going to call that the background color. So to create this layer, we're going to click on the new layer icon. Okay, that's again down here. Okay, now I want that layer to be underneath the cutaway layer. Okay, so just clicked and dragged it below the cutaway layer there. And I want to go over to my color pickers over here. Okay. And I'm going to say pick a color from the color picker window. Okay. These two little boxes indicate the, one's the foreground color, the top one, and then the one, behind it is the background color. So I want to pick a new foreground color. So I'm going to double click on that box, right, which brings up the color picker. It's telling you for the foreground color. Okay. For the first one, I'll stick with that purple is fine. But if you want to change it, you can use the sliders here to kind of get you in the color family that you want, and then use the color picker to actually pick the actual shade that you want, or color that you want. Okay, I like that, so I'm going to say okay. So that's indicated that that purple is my foreground color. Okay. Now I'm going to use the paint bucket tool to fill in that whole layer. Okay. The paint bucket tool is right here. Okay, but if it was one of the tools that was underneath, you might have to switch to that one. It's underneath the gradient tool, I think, is the top tool that's usually there, but when you select that, then the paint bucket shows up. Okay. So then I'm just going to bring my paint bucket over. That's the foreground color. I'm on the background layer, which I still have to rename. I'm going to put my color in. Okay. And you can see on the on the little thumbnail, oh, it's showing us that filled in that area that we had selected. Okay, I'm going to change that right now before I forget. Okay, good. Once we do all these selections and then fill them with color the first time, we don't have to reselect any of the areas. We're just going to go back in on 3 different times and pick different colors. So this first one, you get yourself organized and set up and renamed. It's going to, picking the other 3 versions will go quickly. It's just this first one that takes a lot of time because you're doing all the selections. Okay. So now we're finished with that selection. So we go up to select and deselect. I don't need that area selected anymore. The next step is to make the high contrast image. And we're going to be on the cutaway layer for that. So click on the cutaway layer and select image, adjustments, and then down to threshold. Okay. And it brings up that kind of graph looking thing. And what we want to do is move that slider that appears so that the image contains only enough shadow to show the picture's like essential shapes. This looks a little too much black for me. Here's the threshold level, 128. So my suggestion is that it might end up being for you between 90 and 105, but it really depends on the photo that you're using. But I've just found in the past that it's more in that range. So I'm going to go down to, maybe I'll go down to 90 and see what that, could use a little bit more maybe definition than that. I don't really want to lose her eyebrows too much. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit more. Don't want to lose the nose shape, but I don't want like the teeth and the eyes to be too dark either. So I'm going to keep it, I think at 95 looks good to me. Then click OK. All right, now while you're on the cutaway layer, use another selection tool to roughly select each image area. Okay, so I have the background. I'm going to select my hair area, my face area, and then the dress area. Right, this time I'm going to use the lasso tool, just because that's more of a freehand kind of drawing tool. It's not going to try to be picking areas for me. And that is the right here that looks like a little lasso. Okay. So it doesn't really matter which one we do first. We're just going to, I think I'll start with, or make sure I'm clicked on the lasso tool. I'll do the hair first, I think. Now, for me, I think it's easier, I know this sounds funny, but to actually turn the cutaway layer off so that I can see where the hair is. Now I'm holding down on the trackpad or the mouse as I'm doing this drawing. It's all going to be all one motion or all one line. Basically drawing out the shape, outlining the shape doesn't have to be perfect. They can overlap a little bit, the colors in the end. It's just sort of a rough indication of where her hair is. It's just easier if you have the real photo, I think, or especially was for me, rather than just looking at the cutaway. Okay, so when you get back to your, make sure you've created a whole shape and you have the marching ants. Okay, now I don't want to keep it on the cutaway layer. I want to make a new layer that I can color in with a tool. Okay, so the way that we're going to do that is to press Option, Command, and J. Option, Command, J. Gives me a new layer. So I'm going to name this layer Hair. Okay, and I'm going to change the blending mode to multiply. Okay. When I click OK, then there's our layer for the hair shows up. Okay. Now, to color it in. So we want to make sure that we are on that layer, on the hair layer. Click Command, and then click the thumbnail of that